Hi, my name's John, and last year I did a lot of painting. And as a result, I didn't get much drawing done, which has me feeling really discouraged about my drawing ability. So in this video, I'm going to be doing some drawing, but not just any drawing. I'm going to be making Bargue drawings, which I seem to be hearing a lot more about recently. I need some tape. That's a good spot. Here, can you see that? Okay. I was kind of heavy on this side. Actually, let's move this over here. That's better. Now, from what I've gathered, this is usually an exercise that is done very early on in an artist practice. But since I never went to art school or a traditional atelier, I was never pushed to make one of these. And honestly, I'm not even sure how valuable an exercise they actually are. But with so many people around me talking about them, I figured I'd just give them a try and see what all the fuss is about. And frankly, I'm curious if I'm even capable of making one myself. But before we get into all that, what are Bargue drawings? Got my notes here. Well, Charles Bargue was a French painter and lithographer who lived from 1825 to 1883. And is particularly well known for creating an influential drawing course in collaboration with Jean-Léon, the Cours de Dessin, which just literally means drawing course in French. It's in French. Cours de Dessin. Cours de Dessin. It's a simple name, but effective. Now that I think about it, it's a pretty good name. It's a pretty good name. It's a course about drawing. The course consists of 197 lithographic plates broken up into 3 sections. Section 1, drawing after plaster casts. Section 2, drawing after master drawings, and section 3, drawing after live models. Oh, and if you're curious what a lithographic plate is, like I was, it's essentially an early form of printmaking where an artist creates a drawing on a smooth stone with a greasy pencil. The stone is then rolled with ink and coated with water. There are also some chemicals and solvents involved, but that's above the scope of this explanation. Anyway, because of the grease, the ink only sticks to the marks made by the pencil. A sheet of paper is then laid over the stone and the drawing is pressed onto the paper, creating a print. Since their release, Bargue plates have been copied by thousands of artists, including 2 you may have heard of. Picasso, who copied the Hercules plate at the age of 13, and Van Gogh, who stated, I'm going to read this verbatim because it just sounds crazy. And he was crazy. The careful study and constant and repeated drawing of Bargue's exercises au façon has given me more insight into figure drawing. I've learned to measure and to see and to attempt the broad outlines, so that what used to seem to me to be desperately impossible is now gradually becoming possible. Thank God. Wow, after a declaration like that, he must have made an incredible copy. I'm not sure this copy matches his claims, but at least he feels he got something out of it. And maybe he made some better ones, I don't know. But after a glowing review like that, how can I not give these a try? So what's the plan? Over the next few weeks, I'll be making 3 copies from the first section of the Bargue course. That's like any one of these. Maybe not the Belvedere torso is a little hard. That's a lot. But maybe one of these other ones. And I'm gonna start with an easy one and increase the difficulty with each new drawing. The goal is to essentially make an exact copy of each Bargue, starting with level 1, this foot in profile. I wanted to start with this one because it's relatively simple and it shows the foot at 3 different levels of completion. Now, I've never done this before, but I was told I should use the sight size method when attempting these Bargues, which is a method of drawing where my subject and my drawing surface are side by side to ensure accuracy in proportion and detail at a 1:1 scale. So I printed off an image of the foot and taped it to my easel, accompanied by a fresh sheet of paper. I will be constantly referencing this image as I draw, taking measurements and angles directly from the source and transferring them to my drawing, maintaining the same scale. Frankly, this feels a little like cheating, like tracing with extra steps, but at the same time, I've never tried this technique before, so there must be something I can glean from it. As far as Bargue's method, you start by representing your subject with the least amount of lines possible while still creating a recognizable shape. Okay, so I think I'm done stage 1 and I'm ready to move on to stage 2. Just to sort of recap here, stage 1 is abstracting the fully rendered foot, but into the fewest possible contour lines. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines that make up this foot, as well as a plumb line and a horizontal and an angled line here, but these are just for general measurements. And I've sort of replicated the foot over here. You know, is this an accomplishment? Not really. So let's push it a little further. I'm now going to try and alter this so that it looks a little bit more like drawing number 2. From there, you slowly begin to add detail to the contour lines, including the inside contour that represents the core shadow, or the transition where the form goes from light to dark. Once you have all these structural lines in the correct places, you start to slowly fill in the shadows. And I mean slowly. I think this is the first thing I realized that I don't like about Bargues. Spending hours creating a uniform shadow just doesn't seem like time well spent, but I have to say, it does look nice in the end. After about 8 hours of drawing, I had this foot to show for it. Not bad, but let's be honest, that was a pretty easy one, so let's increase the difficulty. Up next is this simplified head, also known as the capital of Ariadne. Wait, this one. Ariadne. The capital Ariadne. I'm all set up for the next drawing, so it's time to start the lay-in. Right there. This drawing is going to be way more challenging than the foot, so I better get started. And while I was drawing this bard, I had a thought that I'm just going to share. Before I started taking art seriously, I always thought that artists had this natural ability to recreate what they see. I had this whimsical idea of a painter at an easel whipping their brush around in a fury of strokes, paint flying everywhere, resulting in a masterpiece. And I think a lot of people feel this way when looking at art from the outside. But the more I get into my practice, the more I realize the opposite is true. Of course there are exceptions, but for most people, measurement is a key to success. And that is clearly something Bargue wanted us to take away when doing these exercises. Anyway, just like that, drawing number 2 is done. There are definitely some problems with it. The nose pokes out slightly at the wrong angle, and the contour of the back of the head and the neck seem off. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this drawing. I think I spent about 12 hours working on this, so I hope it shows. Let's move on to level 3, L'inconnue de la Seine, which means the unknown woman of the Seine. I guess this was a death mask that was made of some woman who drowned in the Seine River in Paris, which is pretty morbid, but let's draw it. It's a popular Bargue to copy, so I'm gonna do it too. What do you want from me? After a couple hours, I finally have the lay-in lined up and looking good. So it's time to add some shadow. But this is a significant step up from my previous 2 Bargues. In the first 2 drawings, there were really only 2 values, light and dark, but this plate introduces something new, and that would be halftones. These softer, more gradual shadows are much more difficult for me to copy, which means spending a lot of time erasing and trying again. And honestly, I'm not really sure how successful this drawing really ended up. But given the increase in difficulty, I'm pretty happy with the result. By the way, this drawing took me around 15 hours to complete. And I could have probably fixed some of these issues if I spent more time working on it, but at this point I haven't released a new video in over a month, and honestly, I'm just ready to start working on the next thing. Let me know what you think of the Bargues that I made in the comments below. I don't get many comments, so I read them all. Now with the drawings out of the way, let's talk a little bit about what I think I learned, and if I think these drawings are worth making in the first place. The first big takeaway that I had came in the first step of the process, and that's simplifying your subject into the least amount of straight lines possible while still maintaining the shape of the object. This may seem obvious, but to me, this exercise was a great reminder of the importance of this skill. The second big takeaway is the importance of measuring at the early stages of any drawing, which is something I felt like I understood, but while making these drawings, it became much more clear to me how far this skill can be taken. Now, whether you take it this far or not is up to you, but I find when you push for the extremes on either side, you gain a better understanding of the environment that you're working in, and that can only benefit in art practice. On the other hand, I couldn't help but think this whole sight size thing just isn't practical, nor is it very fun. Is it accurate? Yes, but only in very specific circumstances. In a situation where you're stripped of your ability to measure using sight size, you're kind of screwed. Also, I can't tell you the number of hours I spent slowly and methodically shading in the dark side of my drawing, slowly increasing the value with each new layer. Although peaceful and meditative, I couldn't help but feel like my time would be better spent on different aspects of the drawing. And as a result, I may have been better off. Also, I think I'm just a little too deep in my art journey to be taking on Bargues. At this point, my ability to copy from the flat, meaning to copy someone else's drawing, is fairly proficient. And when that happens, it's important to start copying from life as soon as possible, also known as copying from the round. These exercises, from what I've read, are mostly to get you to the point where you can copy from casts and then eventually copy from live models, which is something I've been doing weekly for over 3 years now, albeit at a pretty mediocre level, but I am doing it. So in summary, if you want to make a Bargue, I think you should. But if you're already proficient at drawing from life, I'm not sure how much you'll get out of this particular drawing course. As I've come to realize after weeks of making these drawings, it's much more important to be able to draw from the round than to copy from the flat. But if you're a young artist just starting your journey, I couldn't recommend these drawings enough. It's a great way to draw and subconsciously absorb some objectively fantastic design, as well as teach you the importance of measurement. Not to mention, art is a marathon, not a sprint. Taking your time to make something exceedingly accurate has its merits. While I was researching this video, I found myself watching many Stephen Bauman videos, and he kind of said something that struck me. He said, "I don't think I necessarily find drawing fun, I find it rewarding," which really emphasizes the consistency and discipline it takes to become exceedingly good at something. And of course, art should be fun, but it's also the tough times that create the most growth. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.